Okay, Assalamualaikum and good evening. Okay, I think we can start now. In this, currently there are 24, okay, 55. All right. Can you screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, doctor.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What we are going to do today or tonight is just some sort like sharing session on based on my experience on research on how to write dissertation. So I will give you a brief introduction on how to write research or how to write dissertation or what is the requirement for you to complete for this particular subject, which is ICP 853 for this semester, and then what you need to do, okay, and then some tips that you can use, perhaps useful for you when you want to write your dissertation later on. So I believe previously, Dr. Zuhabri and Dr. Julana have shared their thought on the aspect of research or dissertation. Maybe some of them shared on focusing on research method and so on. But for my part, I'm more focusing in general what you need to do for this semester, okay, for this subject. All right. So that's for tonight lah. Okay, and I have 2 weeks with you. Okay, so next week we are going to focus on another aspect of dissertation or research. So what we are going to do today, all right, so this is the content, all right, so I'm going to share with you regarding what is dissertation, okay, in general, and then development of a proposal. It's not actually a proposal lah, because you have done the proposal part last week, which you have presented your proposal, defended your proposal. So I'm sure you still didn't know the outcome. Okay, I believe Dr. Rumaiza is still working on it to finalize the supervisors that are going to be assigned to you all. So perhaps I think I'm not sure, maybe by tomorrow or early next week, she managed to finalize the supervisors lah. Okay.
You already know, doctor.
Oh, dah.
Finalized already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just now.
Dah finalized.
Oh, I
Finalized
think
already.
the mark is not being finalized, I think.
Yeah. We only
because,
received the list of supervisors.
Okay, good to know. All right, so good to know you have your supervisors now lah. All right, so I believe each supervisors has been allocate with 2 students only. Okay, that's the maximum lah, and new rules for this semester. Okay, so what you need to do after you have your supervisors is that you need to develop until research methodology for this semester. Okay, from chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Okay, later on I will go into detail about it lah. Okay, and then some tips on care and maintenance of your supervisor lah. Okay, so perhaps it could be useful for you later on. Okay, because not supervisor have same attitude and behavior towards their students. So I'm going to share to you some tips on how you can handle your supervisor. Alright, so what is dissertation basically? Okay, dissertation is a research report. Okay, as for your level, which is master by coursework, is just a partial requirement, okay, to fulfill your master. Okay, so the level of dissertation that you are going to write is not for me lah. Okay, it's not being as supervisor. I didn't put a high standard for master student by coursework. Okay, because it's just a part of your master. Okay, you're not doing master by research, which is mainly focusing on research. Of course, on that area, my expectation will be higher lah. But for this level, as a supervisor, I know the limit. Okay, as a master by coursework students, so I know what to expect from this group of students lah. Okay, when you write your research report or dissertation. Alright, so basically you will usually be asked to generate a topic for yourself, to plan and execute a project investigating that topic, and to write up what you did and what your findings were. So that generally what is dissertation all about. Okay, so firstly you have to find topics. Okay, so no need to worry too much about the topic, because usually the topic will keep changing from time to time. Okay, so maybe there's some students that approach me asking about their topic, whether it is suitable or not. I just give a general comment because I know that the topic will not be finalized yet. Okay, because it keeps changing. All right, depends when you go through your research. Perhaps you need to align to a certain area. Okay, so of course, when you want to select your topic, perhaps at the first place, you're going to pick a topic that are too broad, okay, too general, all right? So by having a supervisors, they will help you to narrow down your scope, narrow down your topic, etc. All right? So when you have a topic, then the next step, you need to concern on the issues or problems in your area of research, okay? So you need to find problems. You need to find issues related to your topic. Okay, so why you need to study that topic? Okay, what are the issues? What are the problems? And of course, you need to make an original contribution to human knowledge lah. Okay, this is very subjective lah. This one is very subjective in terms of original contribution. Okay, of course, it's very difficult lah if you want to try to introduce something new, especially at your level as a master by coursework students. Okay, so because with the time constraints, you cannot do much on dissertation actually, or on research actually. Okay, so what is the most important aspect during your time doing the research? You know the research process, what need to do, and etc. That's the most important aspect when you do a dissertation at this level, okay, as a master by coursework student. So in your dissertation, you need to describe what was known about it previously. Of course, it will refer to the previous study, which is your LR. Okay, from there you review. Okay, you criticize previous studies, find similarities, find difference between few studies, etc. So what you did towards solving it, so perhaps by explaining during when you collecting data, you can find solution on your problems. Okay, what you think your results means, okay, in terms of conclusion, etc. So then where or how further progress in the field can be made. So at the end of your dissertation or at the end of your research, you need to give some future recommendation on how you can progress from your research area that you have picked just now. Alright, so again, clear text and good grammar, okay, easier to read by the examiners. Okay, so because when you submit your dissertation next semester, okay, the final one, the complete one, okay, it's not going to be read by your supervisors. Okay, they are going to be second examiner, okay, who are going to read your dissertation. So you need to write something that are very concise and easy to understand. Okay, so that's I know some of you might face a problem to write a good English lah. So never mind. Later on, I'm going to show you a trick on how you can write a good sentence, etc. And then follow scientific writing format. So you can refer to current format being used by our faculty lah. Alright. So in terms of reference format, we are using APA. Okay, so it's normal citation format that being used widely globally as well lah. Okay, and make sure figures are clear and easy to understand. Like if any figures being included in your dissertation or tables, so it must be clear and easy to understand. So that's some of the criteria on dissertation lah in general. So next, I'm going to share with you on how you can develop from your proposal that you have. how you can expand that proposal to make it a complete task for this first stage of your dissertation until until end of this semester. Okay, so what are the requirements? What are you need to do? Okay, after this. Alright, so what I am going to share with you is just a general overview of what you're going to do. So whatever it is, again, you'll go back to your supervisors. Okay, so because your supervisor will have a final say on what you need to write, what you need to include. Okay, so I just give you an overview on what you're going to write throughout this semester after this. Okay. So this is the structure of your dissertation for this semester. Okay, so firstly you need an introduction which will cover your chapter 1 of your dissertation. Okay, what should be included in your chapter 1 is your similar to your proposal which you have done last week, okay, which you have presented. Okay, you need to have a general introduction to topic, which means your research background. Then you need to have problem statement, okay, research objective, aims, questions, scope and limitation, significance of research, research methodology. All right, so that's what you need to have in your chapter 1. Later I will go into detail about it. All right, then chapter 2 is your literature review, okay, which cover every aspect of your research. Okay, so means that I would like to quote what you call it, an advice from one of our senior lecturer who has been retired last semester. Okay, if you're familiar with her name is Prof. Dr. Roshana Takin. Okay, what you need to cover in your LR means that every aspect that you state in your topic should be included in your LR, okay, including also in your objective. All right, so you need to cover every aspect. Okay, you want to study, for example, like you want to study the impact of BIM in minimizing waste, for example. Okay, so you need to include BIM in your LR, you need to include waste in your LR, and so on. All right, same goes with your objective. Okay, for example, like you want to study the obstacles of implementing BIM, so you need to find the obstacles from previous study and include in your LR. From there, you can criticize or review. All right, so that's the criteria of writing your LR lah, in general. And then the last factor that you need to do for this semester is your proposed method or research methodology lah. Okay, which cover your chapter 1. Okay, you need to discuss with your supervisor whether you want to use quantitative or qualitative methods, or maybe both. Okay, but for me, at your level, I prefer for you to use only one method. Okay, for me lah, but it's again up to your supervisors lah. Okay, because as I mentioned earlier, your supervisor will have a final say on that. Okay, because you have a time, very limited time. Okay, to if you want to carry both methods, perhaps you don't have enough time for you to complete your dissertation. Okay, so it's advisable for you to pick only one method. Okay, perhaps, but more in depth lah when you use one method only. So you need to cover everything when you use one method. The good thing about using both methods, you can balance your objective and how you can achieve your objective lah. Actually, it's good actually to implement both methods. But in this case, perhaps because of time constraint, perhaps I'm afraid that you don't have enough time to cover both methods. Okay, unless you have you are good in time management, so you can go for both methods lah. So of course, references lah. You need to include references in your structure or your stage 1 of your dissertation. Alright. So my advice, another tips that I can give you is that I strongly recommend that you look at relevant dissertation in your research area. Okay. Look, not copy. Alright. So try to find something that related to your topic. When you, of course, I'm sure you can find you need to explore, you need to Google, use whatever tools that you have to find a dissertation that relevant to your research area. This is one of the things. This is also one of the practice that I used when I did my PhD. Okay, I try to find any dissertation that related to my topic, and I use that dissertation as a guideline for me, as a benchmark. Try to read it, how they or he or she wrote down her or his dissertation. So from there you can get some ideas. All right, so that's one of the tips lah. Try to find. I'm pretty sure you can find dissertation that related to your area. Okay, but don't copy. Okay, so that's the rules lah. All right, so if you copy also, we can detect it. So we have a platform to check plagiarism. Okay, so your similarity rate should be less than 30. Master level, I think less than 30%. Okay, untuk for similarity rates. Okay. Alright, so have a look on how you can write your chapter 1. Okay, your introduction chapter. Alright. When of course now you have you know what you what you want to do, because you have the topic already. Okay, maybe the topic will be finalized later on with the supervisor and etc. But you have an idea on how you are going to do what you're going to do with your research and so on. So you have the topic. So before you can formulate your research problem, of course you need to write down your research background. Okay. So in research background, you don't need to include the problems. Okay. So in research background, you need to write down the topic that you want to study. Okay. So perhaps it's more general. Okay. You want to give a reader an idea on what you're going to study, on what you're going to focus on. Okay. So in research background, you don't need to explain about problems. Okay, you just give an overview on your topic globally, then narrow down it to the Malaysian context. Okay, for example, like you want to study BIM, let's say. Okay, so you give an overview of BIM globally. Okay, in UK, in US, for example, etc. Okay, what are the benefits and so on, and narrow it down to the Malaysian context. All right, so that's how you write your research background. Okay, so you give overview of the readers on what you're going to study. Okay, so if your study related to waste, BIM and waste, let's say, so you need to include also both on your research background. All right, so after that, then you need to derive your research problem. Okay, so research problem must have justification. Okay, means that the problem must come from previous study. Okay, the problem cannot come from you. Okay, maybe you think that BIM is not widely used in Malaysia because it's expensive. That what you think. It cannot be included in your problem unless you could find from previous study, maybe Ahmad 2020 stated that the BIM implementation in Malaysia is quite slow because the software is too expensive. Let's say like that. So if you could find someone who mentioned about the problems, then you can include in your research problem. All right. So in developing your research problem, you need at least 3. All right, at least 3 issues or 3 problems, okay, related to your research area. Okay, what are the problems? Try to find at least 3. So means that you need to find at least minimum 3 citation or justification, okay, from previous study. Okay, maybe could be more. Maybe there are 2 or 3 papers stated the same issues. Okay, so you can include your research problem. Okay, so when you find the problems, okay, then from there you expand. Okay, give your own judgment, your own assumption. Okay, based on your own understanding on that particular problem. So from there you expand the problems. Okay, so after you formulate all the problems, after you have listed, after you have described all, maybe you have 3 problems. Okay, you have described all the problems. Then I would like to advise to you. Okay, so again, it will depend on your supervisor lah. I will advise you to create a last paragraph in your problem statement that summarize all the problems. Okay, so that's a good practice to have lah. So you summarize all the problems in one paragraph. Okay, so that's how you formulate the research problem. All right, from problem you need to establish your research aim, objective, and question. Okay, firstly, you need to establish your research aim. Research aim should be constructed in one precise and simple sentence. Only in one sentence only. No need to write down a long paragraph or long sentence about aims. Okay, just one simple and precise sentence about research aim. Okay, so because by reading by reading your research aim, the reader know what you are going to achieve at the end of your research. Okay, that's the critical component in your chapter 1, research aim. Okay, so from your aim, then you can develop your objective. Okay, so maybe depends on problem. Okay, so maybe you have 3 problems, then you need to have 3 objectives. Okay, so the problems, research problem and objective must be related. Okay, so must be related. All right, so in developing the research objective, try to use simple terms. For example, like to identify, to suggest, to propose, to study. Okay, don't use terms that are too ambitious. For example, like to measure, to analyze, to examine. Okay, don't use that terms because it's very difficult to achieve if you use that term. Even when I did my PhD, I'm afraid to use that term. Okay, to measure, to examine. All right, so try to use simple terms. Okay, to identify, to propose, to suggest, etc. Okay, to develop at least quite okay. All right. So after you have your objective, then you can derive your research questions. Okay, and your research question can be more than one for each objective. Maybe one objective you have 2 research questions. Maybe you have 3 research questions. Depend. Okay. And then identification of research knowledge gap. Okay, as you want to yep.
Doctor.
Yeah.
I have a question. Tadi you mentioned that to measure, examine, and analyze is a bit difficult, right?
Yeah.
How about assess? To assess, is it in the difficult terms also?
To assess,
Difficult to achieve?
I can say it's quite difficult also to achieve. Okay, how you're going to assess, in what instrument you are going to use. There is a lot of questions could be asked during your maybe if you have Viva next semester. That's the you will give a chance.
Later.
Yeah. So try to use simple terms. Okay, so it's easier for you to achieve lah later on.
What about if we want to do like something quantitative? So what are the objective or the
still you can use
keywords
to identify. It's not a problem. Okay, you can use that.
Even if we want to compare, for example, like last the RP session, right, Dr. Reza, I want to see how the beam capability will affect the benefits, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to compare like the level of beam capabilities and the level of benefits that they will get, we don't need to use any like keywords like measurement or analyze.
Yeah. Compare
so we can
directly.
use the simpler words lah
to
propose or to
to
compare.
Yeah, to compare. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Right. identification of research knowledge gap. This one should be included in chapter 2 later. Never mind, I will touch on that later on. Okay. Determination of type of data to be collected. All right. This one is more on scope of right, this one is more on scope of study, okay, which what area you want to focus. As I always like to mention, when you want to write your scope of studies, you have to answer a few questions. Okay, for example, like what are you going to study? Okay, who are your respondents? Where you are going to conduct your study? Okay, so you need to specific detail up your scope of study in this section. Okay, so in terms of maybe you want to, for example, like in your topic, you stated you want to study BIM implementation. Okay, in what area the BIM implementation you want to focus? Maybe in government project only, or maybe in private project. So you need to state in your scope of study. Okay, who are your respondents? Okay, perhaps you want to target on contractors, let's say. Okay. So, like contractor, we have grade 1 to G1 to G7. Okay, you need to specifically state it in your scope of study. Okay, contractor from which grade? Okay, you want to focus maybe only G7, or maybe you want to focus on SME, G1 to G5 only, for example. So you have to specifically mention in your scope of study. Where? Okay, in terms of area. Okay, you want to study in Selangor only, alright, in Klang Valley only. Okay, I'm not advised for you to put Malaysia in your topic. Okay, it's really big scope, which I'm afraid not suitable for your level lah. Okay, maybe you can focus on certain state only, certain area only. Alright, when you conduct your study. Alright, so in terms of research question, as I mentioned earlier, it's more related to your objective lah. Okay, so when you want to develop the objective or the research question is must relate to your research area, of course, relevant to interest and abilities, relevant to geographic location. Okay, in terms of significance of your research, this one you need to write down in your chapter 1. What is your significance of your research, especially towards the industry, for example? What are the contribution of your research towards industry? Okay, so perhaps you are planning to develop a framework, let's say. So you can state in your significance of research by developing the framework, it could be useful for the contractor to use, for example, on how to implement BIM, for example. All right, that kind of thing. All right, so you need to mention in your chapter 1 what is the significance of your research. And in terms of methods, as I mentioned earlier, in your chapter 1, you need to write down your research method, but not in detail, just in general only. Okay, so because you are going to have your own chapter 3 on for your research method. So in chapter 1, when you write your research method, just write it in just a brief introduction on what the method that you're going to use for your research. Okay, not to write it in detail, because you're going to write it in detail in your chapter 3. So just give an overview on what you're going, what method that you're going to use when you carry out your study. Okay. All right. So that's the content of your chapter 1. Okay, from 1.1, which is your research background, 1.2, which is your problem statement, 1.3, which is your research aim, objective, and questions. You can merge all together in one chapter. It's not a problem. All right. 1.4 is your scope of research. 1.5 is your significance of your research, and 1.6 is your research method in general, not too detailed. All right. So in chapter 1.6 for your research method, it is advisable if you could develop what we call it as a research flow. Okay, in diagram, in the form of diagram. So you give a clear view towards to the reader on how you can conduct, how you're going to conduct your research. Okay, for example, like in your never mind, later on I can show you on how to develop the research process and so on. So for chapter 1, normally lah, alright, normally the total pages are between 7 to 10 pages normally. Okay, chapter 1. Alright, so no need to put a lot of things on your chapter 1. Okay, so if you write too many things on chapter 1, perhaps you could give a bad influence to the readers. Okay, so try to be more concise and accurate when you write your chapter 1. Okay, you need to study what need to be included on chapter 1. Okay, what to be included in chapter 2 and etc. Okay, so no need to write it too long and so on for your chapter 1. Normally 7 to 10 pages only. Alright, next chapter is your literature review. Okay, so normally key question associated with LR is what research has been done. So you need to have do a lot of research. Okay, you need to find a lot of relevant papers, magazine, books regarding to your topics. Okay, so why is this research topic important or significant? What are the research gaps? How does the literature link back to your problems, eventually to your objective, as I mentioned earlier? So when you want to write your LR, it must be related to your problem as well as your objective. Insight into method that has been used in other studies. Okay, so maybe you can give an overview on what are the methods that have been used in previous study, especially related to your topics lah. Okay, and when you write your LR, after you cover every aspect of your LR, again, it is advisable. So again, as I mentioned many times, depends on your supervisor, but it's a good practice. Okay, last subchapter on chapter 2, okay, maybe chapter 2 cover LR. So maybe your last subchapter of your chapter 2 will be 2.10, let's say. So 2.10 will be your summary of your LR. So in that area, you need to identify or you need to explain your research gap. Okay, so what are the loopholes in your research area? Okay, from there, you can relate back to your problem statement. Okay, give justification on why you can proceed with this topic. Okay, so that's how you can derive your research gap lah. It is advisable for you to have a summarized subchapter in your LR. Okay, so how do you search the literature? I think most of you know how to find literature, but just share with you. Okay, so database are your friends. Okay, you have UiTM library as your main source of literature. Okay, so Google Scholar. Okay, some of citation database, Web of Science corpus, you need to explore UiTM library. So even if you're not mistaken, I think last week some of my colleagues mentioned that nowadays UiTM library, when you want to find, maybe you are interested in one paper, but UiTM did not subscribe it. Okay, maybe you means that you cannot get the full paper. You can request to the librarian of UiTM library to get the full paper for you. Okay, so that's one of the way. Okay, it will help you to find relevant journals related to your topics. Right, and another tips that I can give you, okay, and on how you can find more relevant literature related to your topics. Perhaps some of you know about it, but I just share with you. Okay, so maybe you have found one paper that are related to your topic. Okay, so from that paper, of course, there will be a reference list. Okay, so perhaps from one paper, you can expand your reference to 10, maybe, because in one paper there will be 10 citations that are related to your topic. So you are interested, you could use that paper for your dissertation. That's one of the way. Okay, so from there you can expand your referral list. Okay. Right, and okay, again as I mentioned, most general database electronically through your time library lah. Okay, try to exploit. Alright, and when you have a lot of reference, it is not advisable for you to manage it manually. Okay, perhaps I'm afraid that if you manage your reference list manually, you will miss something. Okay, this is one of the mistake that been as a student we are afraid to do this mistake. Okay, whereby you put the citation in your sentence, but in your reference list you miss it. Okay, that's mistake that should not be happen when you do dissertation, when you write research. Okay, so if you have more than 50 reference, it's quite difficult for you to manage manually lah. So it is advisable for you to use software, for example like EndNote or Mendeley. Okay, or even if I'm not mistaken, Microsoft Word also have this mechanism lah on how to manage your reference lah. Okay, I'm just share with you on how to use EndNote if you interested. Okay, Mendeley, I don't know because I didn't use Mendeley when I managed my reference when I did my PhD. So I'm using EndNote. So I just share with you EndNote. Okay, actually EndNote software, you can ask UiTM. Okay, for you, EndNote UiTM here. Okay, EndNote software download. UiTM library. Alright, so when you download the software, they will ask you the password, okay, to install. Maybe after that, you can ask the librarian on where you can get the password lah. Okay, so after you get the password, then you can install the software. Okay, so the EndNote software will look like this lah. Okay, this one is I'm using the license from UiTM. Okay, so here there are reference style. Okay, as you are aware that UiTM using APA. Okay, we have numbered, we have a lot of reference styles lah. Reference style, but in UiTM we are using APA format. Okay, so how you going to put or extract your reference, or you want to put your reference in this EndNote? Okay, you can add using or you can add manually, or you can use this website, okay, or this platform. Okay, so you need to open Mozilla, all right, Mozilla Firefox, because Mozilla is aligned with the EndNote software. Okay, if you use Google Chrome or Microsoft Internet Explorer, it's not work well. Okay, you only can use Firefox or Mozilla. Okay, for example, like you open Google Scholar. Okay, you open Google Scholar, you want to find something on BIM, let's say. BIM construction. Okay, find the latest since 2020. Okay, so perhaps you are interested in this topic, let's say automating construction manufacturing procedure using BIM digital object. Okay, so you click in this okay, so you click that symbol, okay, and then they will appear like this. Then you directly click EndNote. Okay, you will appear like this. After that, open with EndNote. Make sure you have installed the EndNote already lah. Then click OK. Okay, they will import the details about that paper into the EndNote. Okay, as you can see here. Alright, so you can right click here, they can find you full text or full paper, if any lah. If they can find it, if not, you have to find other ways. Okay, so how you can cite, okay, how you can cite this paper. Let's say you were interested to cite this paper in your dissertation. Okay, BIM is getting popular, let's say, the segment. Okay, so this is what you expected from that paper. Okay, so make sure you have picked this paper, highlight this paper, and then go to EndNote in the Microsoft Word. So insert citation, insert selected citation. Okay, so it will appear over there. Okay, BIM is getting popular, mentioned by our site. Or you want to put this as a beginning of the sentence. Okay, you can edit citation, display outer here. Mention that BIM is getting popular. Okay, so that's one of the way. Okay, you can use explore using EndNote lah if you want. Okay. Alright, so that's how you could use EndNote to manage your reference. Alright, and to manage your citation. Okay. Alright, in terms of how to cite, alright, I would like to touch on this. Perhaps some of you may be still not familiar on how you need to put your citation in your content or in your sentence or in your figures or tables. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few examples. Firstly, on the content or sentence. Okay, there are two ways to put your citation in the sentence. First, at end of sentence. Okay, for example, like currently 40% of industrial waste in the world come from the construction industry. Mentioned by Kulatunga ETAL 2006. Right, so means that it's more than 2 authors. Okay, you can set more than 2 authors, it will appear like this. Okay, detail will be at the reference list. Okay, so another way on how you can cite in the content of sentence is at the beginning or in the middle. Okay, for example, like furthermore, Lu and Yuan 2011 clarify the importance blah blah blah. Alright, so only years being in the bracket. Okay, if you put it, if you put your citation at the beginning or in the middle of the sentence. Okay, so that's how you can put your citation in the sentence. Okay, there are 2 ways. Okay, remember the citation name is only use father's name. Okay, that's why if you use EndNote, it's easy. It's already directly will be included in your sentence if you pick, if you highlight in the EndNote software. Okay, in figures, okay, how you can put citation in figures. Okay, for example, like you have a rectangular, and this rectangular you extract from one paper. Okay, so firstly you have to write down the caption of that figure. Okay, figure 1.1. This one also numbering. So bear in mind, usually normal practice when you write caption for figures, okay, the numbers should start with chapter. Okay, means that this figure is under chapter 1. 1.1 is the numbers, the first figures in chapter 1, 1.1. Okay, let's say this is the 5th figure in the chapter 1, so the numbers should be 1.5. If the figures is in chapter 2, so should be start with 2 point, maybe figures number 10 in that chapter 2, so 2.10 rectangular. So when come to chapter 3, you start all over again. Figure 3.1, blah 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 and so on. Alright, so that's how you write caption. And then this figure is being extracted from paper write by this person, for example, ISA to 2020. So below the caption, in the middle, okay, you need to put source ISA 2020 in bracket, okay, and in italic format. Okay, so that's how you write citation for figure. For table, normal practice, the caption for table is located at the top. Okay, for figure, below the figure, but table is at the top. So let's say this table is in chapter 2, table number 1. So the caption will be table 2.1 COVID-19 statistic. Okay, so let's say you have table, that's the statistic, and caption need to be located at bottom corner, right bottom corner of the table. Okay, so at this right bottom corner. Okay, source ISA 2020. Okay, same format. So that's how you write citation for sentence, figure, and table. Alright, so hopefully you clear about it lah. Alright. Right, here's some of the example of good LR. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to show you how to write LR on the topic of construction versus environment. Okay, if you focus on the first 2 sentences, okay, it's more on general overview of topic. Okay, so isolate business and natural environment. Okay, awareness of integrating design is getting greater emphasis. That's the following sentence. Narrow down the scope, focusing on construction industry, and then further describe the impact of construction industry towards environment. Okay, so that's how you can write down your LR lah. Okay, so you review. So remember, even though you put citation, okay, for example, like this one, Baton, Q and Lusmo, etc. Okay, remember to rephrase the sentence. Okay, even if you extract 100% from that paper, the sentence, even though you put citation, still will be detected as plagiarism. Okay, so means that you need to rephrase the sentence. Okay, restructure the sentence. Okay, twist back. Okay, change the words, for example, and etc. Okay. Alright, in terms of research method, just share with you in general about qualitative research. Okay, it's more on suitable to be used on exploratory research. It used to gain understanding on underlying reason, opinion, motivation. Okay, it's more on interview techniques lah. Okay, which can be conducted unstructured, semi-structured, or structured interview. Okay. That's the category of interview. Okay, unstructured means that you are going to conduct the interview session spontaneously. Means that the questions come on the spot. Okay, you don't have any specific question. You interview the people directly. Okay, spontaneously you ask the questions regarding to your topic. That's unstructured. Okay, semi-structured, you have a few questions that you need to ask, but during the interview session, you have your own additional questions that comes into mind suddenly. Okay, that's what we call it as semi-structured. While a structured interview is structured lah. Okay, so you have, let's say you have 15 questions. That's the only question that you are going to ask to your interviewee. Okay, interviewee lah. Alright, so normally the sample size is small lah. And normally when you want to conduct interview, even though the respondent is small, not many, but the criteria is quite tougher lah. Okay, because when you want to conduct interview, you need to pick an expert respondent on your research area. Okay, you cannot randomly pick whoever you want to conduct the interview. So you need to find someone who will have a high level of knowledge on your topics. In terms of quantitative research, okay, is normally using questionnaire lah. Okay, is statistic. Alright, so normally in terms of the challenge of quantitative research is the numbers is big, okay, you need a lot of respondent. Later on, I'm going to show to you on how you can identify your sample size. Okay, later on after this. But when you want to conduct quantitative research, the challenge is that you want to get respondent. Okay, you need a lot of respondents, and of course, when you deal with a human behavior, is quite difficult for you to get feedbacks. And mechanism of distributing your questionnaire is varies. Okay, you can use traditional ways, means that you, in terms of using postage, okay, you print out hard copy your questionnaire, put in the envelope, and you post to the potential respondent. Then at the end, in your envelope, you put another envelope with your address, with the stamp, and respond with the hope that the respondent will respond to your questionnaire, and put back in the another envelope that with your address, and then they will post it to you back. That's the traditional way. Okay. Previously when we don't have internet, okay, gadget, okay, WhatsApp and so on, that's the way you collect data. Okay, it's quite challenging. Okay. And of course, currently with the technology and so on, we can collect data online, okay, using Google Form, etc. Okay. When I did my PhD, I used questionnaire. Okay, I distributed 480 questionnaire. Okay, and I got 167, I think, in return, who responded to my questionnaires which is valid for analyzing punya purpose, because you need at least 30% response rate, okay, from your distribution. Okay, from 480 questionnaires, I use traditional way, which I posted the questionnaire. I think around 200. I posted the questionnaire, but I got in return less than 20 only. Okay, so most of my respondents respond using Google Form. Okay, SurveyMonkey. I used SurveyMonkey during that time. Okay, so that's one of the way lah. Right. When you want to carry out research method, it's either quantitative or qualitative. Sampling strategies are very important. Okay, you need to decide your sample size, how many respondents, etc. Okay. So sampling strategies can be divided into two categories. Okay, probability sampling, okay, which include random sampling. Okay, every member has an equal chance. Okay, maybe you have a list of contractors, you randomly pick the contractors. Okay, so that's random sampling. Stratified sampling, population divided into subgroups. Members are randomly selected from each group. Okay, maybe you have a list of G7 contractors which you obtain from CIDB, let's say, okay, around Malaysia. Okay, so then you subgroup the list of contractor into states. Okay, so Selangor, how many, KL, and etc. So then you want to focus only Selangor. All right, then from there you randomly selected the contractor. So that's what we call it as a stratified sampling. Okay, systematic sampling, okay, uses a specific system to select members, such as every 10% on the alphabetized list. Okay, so for example, you have 2,000 listed contractors, let's say. Okay, so you want to select every 10 numbers, okay, in terms of 10 listed contractors. Okay, number 10, number 20, 30, and so on. Okay, that's systematic sampling. Okay, cluster, okay, cluster random sampling. Okay, ini bukan cluster COVID. Okay, divides the population into cluster. Okay, cluster are randomly selected, and all members of the cluster are selected as sample. Okay, so again, after you list down the, for example, like contractor in Selangor, okay, you divide into cluster. Okay, cluster, maybe cluster Shah Alam, cluster Gombak, for example, and so on. Alright, so you want to focus only cluster Shah Alam only. Alright, so that's one of the way. Okay, multi-stage random sampling, which you combine all the stated sampling, probability sampling. Okay, and another categories of sampling strategies is non-probability sampling. Okay, convenient or accidental sampling. Okay, members of unit are selected based on availability. Okay, so you call contractors, you want you want to find members that are related to your topic. So maybe only he available. So that is under the category of accidental sampling. Perceived sampling, members of a particular group are purposely sought after. Okay, so you already have your focus group. Okay, you focus on that sample only. Expert sampling, member considered to be of high quality are chosen for participation. Okay, you only consider an expert. Diversity sampling, members are selected intentionally across the possible types of responses to capture all possibility. And finally, snowball sampling. Okay, members are sampled and asked to help identify other members to sample, and this process continues until enough samples are collected. Okay, so you based on suggestion from your friends. Okay, you got one respondent, you ask them if there are any friends that could respond to your question and so on. Okay, that's what we call as snowball sampling. Okay, how you can determine your sample size? Okay, this one of the popular reference that you could refer to, which developed by this person, Craig, Chi, and Morgan, 1970. Okay, so first, before you can decide your sample size, you need to know your population size. Okay, for example, like you want to study contractor in Selangor, which you want to focus only G7. Okay, you go to CIDB website. They have a registered contractors in Selangor. Okay, so you browse the website, database of CIDB, find G7 contractor in Selangor. Okay, from database from CIDB, let's say there are 10,000 contractors in Selangor. G7 contractors in Selangor. That's your population. Okay, that's your population. Okay, no, don't worry. Don't think that means that you have to distribute 10,000. Okay, so from that population, you can identify your sample size, which is S here. So your population N is 10,000. So means that your sample size is 370. So means that this is the minimum questionnaires that you need to distribute. Okay, so you need to distribute at least 370 questionnaire. Okay, so that's your sample size. All right, so from 370, you need to get at least 30% response rate. Okay, 30% out of 370. Betul? 111.
100 plus.
111, 100 plus lah. Right, that's your minimum. That's your minimum response rate that you should get. So when you achieve the number 111, so then you can proceed with your analyzing analysis stage of your data lah. Okay, so that's how you can conduct your research lah. If you want to use, for example, questionnaire. Okay, so firstly you have to determine your population. Then you can identify your sample. So from sample, you need to get 30% of response. After that, then you can proceed with the analysis. Okay. All right. Any question before we move on to last part? Okay, maintenance of your supervisor. If not,
Doctor.
Yeah.
The sampling schedule tadi, tables tadi tu, memang kena follow lah.
Yes. This one is because when you want, if you want to decide your numbers, you must have justification. So I already give you the justification. So no need to find lah. So you dah ada table ni, you can use it for your future nanti when you conduct your
Thank you,
method.
Doktor.
Okay?
So meaning
Doktor,
Yeah.
yang ini untuk questionnaire sahaja ke ataupun untuk interview juga?
Ini untuk questionnaire. In terms of interview, until now I couldn't find the exact ataupun, or I can say I couldn't find what is the minimum numbers of respondent for interview. Because when I did my PhD, I didn't use interview, so I'm not that familiar with that sample for interview. Okay, but this one is more on questionnaire.
so Doctor, if let's say lah, if I pass this SEM lah, so the next SEM lecturer tanya macam mana you get the sampling, so we can say lah that we are using this one lah.
Yes.
Because this is the proven method lah. The figures tu memang researcher buat based on this lah.
Yes.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay, Doctor, clear.
Okay.
Thank you, Doktor.
Alright. But if you not sure about your population, okay? So like me, when I did my PhD, I'm not sure my total population because my respondent are government agencies, contractors, consultants. So it's very difficult to get the exact numbers of population for my studies. So in that case, you cannot use this table. Okay, so what you can do is that I just share with you. Okay, this is the formula to determine your sample size. Okay, this formula is suggested by Smith 2013. Okay, this is the formula, and Z times P divided by D. Okay, minimum sample size. Okay, they have tables here. This one is more on confidence level. Is when you're using SPSS, you more understand lah about this confidence level. But normally we take 95% of confidence level. Okay, standard normal deviation. Okay, so this is being given by this person, Smith, 2013. Okay, so you put the numbers. Let's say your confidence level is 90%. Regarding your confidence level, I can say is the validity of your data. Okay, so you confident 95%. So the Z score is 1.96. You put in the formula. So P is the population proportions. Okay, you assume 50%. This one is up to you in terms of you want to make assumption. Margin of error also you need to assume. Okay, you assume 5%. Alright, so you put in the formula, then you get your population or your sample size is 385. Okay, this formula is can be used when you find it difficult to identify your population. Okay, like my case lah. Okay, if you focus on one stakeholder saja, only, for example, only contractor, maybe it's easy for you to get the database. Okay, for example, like myself, it's quite difficult. It's too big, maybe too big, so too difficult to identify. Even I study the whole Malaysia, it's quite difficult. Then you could use this formula lah. This one is from Smith 2013. I can show you the detail of the reference lah. Reference Smith. Jangan takut, ni PhD bukan master. Right, this website. I'm not sure. I can share. I'm not sure still working or not. Website. Maybe interview boleh. You can try to explore lah this one. Okay, that's one of the way lah.
I have a question.
Yeah, mate.
Just now, you give the example if we having the number around 10,000, we need to distribute around 370 questionnaire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we get answers like minimum around 110. So
Yeah.
what if I can distribute less than this number and get the respondent by that minimum number? Is that acceptable, or I have to distribute that number?
If based on this table, you have to distribute minimum 370. You cannot distribute less than that. That's
Even
the
though
rule.
if I can manage to get the respondent as requested.
Yeah, even though you
You got my point? It's like
yeah, I got your point. The rule of thumb is that when you refer to this table, you need to distribute according to the sample size. That's the rule of thumb. Okay. Because as I mentioned just now regarding the example 10,000, you need your sample size is 370, so means that you need to distribute minimum 370. You cannot distribute less than that.
Okay, let's say if later on I found out that the number is quite high, I can narrow my limitation or something.
Yeah, you can adjust that.
Okay.
Maybe you found
now when you mentioned, I'm afraid the number of population is quite high. So I'm afraid
that's why I said for your level, perhaps you can narrow it down to be more specific. Okay, focus on certain state or maybe focus on certain area only in that state, so that your sample could be quite small lah. So it's not become a burden for you to collect data later on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Anything else? If not, we can continue a little bit lagi. Later, nanti after that we can continue your discussion lah. Okay, in terms of care and maintenance of your supervisor lah, just to share with you lah. Alright. Firstly, you need to be proactive. You need to make aware that your supervisor may be very busy, and don't expect them to push you through the dissertation. Okay. From my personal experience, to be honest, we as a lecturer is quite busy. Okay, except our main job to teach, to give lecture, we also have to do other things. Okay, administration works. All right, research. Okay, and even we need to supervise for your information, like myself. For degree level, I have to supervise 10 students. Okay, for degree. All right, master 2. And plus your seniors, okay, for second stage ICP 857. So you don't expect your supervisors to be constantly updating you, okay. So if you get that supervisor is good for you lah, okay. But sometimes supervisor will not take any action if you keep quiet, okay. If you keep quiet, they also will keep quiet, because remember, dissertation is your work. You have to drive it your own. Okay. The role of supervisor is to guide you only, to supervise you only. So maybe you write or drive your dissertation, you lost somewhere. So maybe you can consult with your supervisor, and supervisor will put back you into the right directions lah. That's the main role of your supervisors actually. So please keep adapting to your supervisors lah. Okay, and please when you now you have your own supervisors, perhaps my advice at the first stage ni, perhaps you could ask your supervisors what are the requirements you as a student, what you need to do. Okay, is it necessary for you to update to your supervisors every week, every month. Okay, so maybe you can ask that with your supervisor. Okay, so remember again, as I mentioned earlier, it's your research and decision, so you must drive it lah. Okay, so it's quite a challenging task lah to conduct to write dissertation actually, especially you as a part-time student, most of you, and perhaps you as a you want to focus on other subjects as well. So that's why you need to plan times carefully lah. Okay, again, in terms of meeting, as I mentioned earlier, you need to consult with your supervisor on how you can conduct meeting. Is it nowadays, of course, we cannot have a face-to-face meeting. So perhaps you can ask your supervisor, can we conduct online meeting every month, for example, so it's easy for you to manage, update your progress. Okay, so for example, like myself, when I first meet my supervisor, when I did my PhD, I asked him, okay, what you expect from me? Is it necessary for me to be at the office from 8 to 5 p.m. Because as a PhD student, you've been allocate a workstation, each PhD student, okay? And even in UiTM, we have a workstation for you. Okay, if you do master by research, if you do PhD lah, okay, normally. So I asked my supervisor what you expect from me. Okay, is it compulsory for me to be at the office every day from 8 to 5? Luckily, I got a family-oriented supervisor lah, I can say. Okay, he understood that I have a family, so it give quite a freedom for me to manage my time lah in doing my research. But the main things that I have to update him my progress every 2 weeks. Okay, so that's the rule of thumb that he gave me lah when I did my PhD. Okay, it's no, he give me freedom. It's either I want to do my work at the given workstation. Even I can do my work at home if I want. Even I can go library or coffee shop if I want. He told me as long as I update to him every 2 weeks lah. So that's one of the examples lah. Alright, in terms of feedback, okay, if you want feedback from your supervisors, don't expect the feedback on the spot. Okay, so give ample time for your supervisors to check. Okay, so if it's a very critical work, perhaps you can predict what is a sufficient time for your supervisor to check, maybe 2 weeks. Okay, maybe you can, after 1 week, you can ask the update, okay, whether the supervisors have checked your work or not. Okay, because sometimes supervisor forgot, okay, to check, alright, your work. Okay, so maybe you can remind after 1 week to getting your works lah. Okay, and in terms of any issues lah, okay, maybe at a certain point, maybe there are critical issue. Perhaps I think at your level, there will be not that critical issue lah. Okay, compared to when you do master by research or PhD. Okay, but if any, perhaps you can consult your fellow students. Okay, maybe we'll share. Okay, and maybe you can ask the coordinator lah. I think coordinator now is Dr. Juliana. If you have problems with your supervisors and so on. Okay. Alright, last one, tips. You can join a FB group, doctorate support group. Okay, maybe even though this group is specifically for postgrad or PhD research, but still it's quite relevant because sometimes they're going to post something related to research. So you can use it lah. As one of the platform that you could use to get more knowledge on how you can write your research or dissertation. Alright, the last one, the final tips that I can give you. This one is more on writing. Okay, I know some of us have a problem with writing. Okay, including myself lah, because we are Malay, right? Okay, English is not our main language. Okay, when we want to write in English, sometimes the ideas is very difficult, especially the first word. Okay, okay, the first word is very difficult to write, to find. Okay, the right word to start. All right, so it's very difficult for us lah. Okay, sometimes when we write in English, we are always using the same terms. Okay, same sentence and so on. This website could be useful for you. Okay, this is developed by one of the professor in University of Manchester. Pukul 10 dah. Alright, University of Manchester. Okay, so they have every section of your dissertation or research. Okay, from introducing works, referring to sources, describing methods, reporting results, discussing finding, writing conclusion. Okay, for example, like you want to find ideas on how to write works, introduce your works. Click here. Okay, establishing the importance of the topic for the world or society. Click here. Alright, they give sample sentence, how to start your sentence. Okay, X is fundamental to blah blah blah. Okay, importance to topic, stating the purpose of current research, explaining the significance of current study, limitation. Okay, referring to sources, general comment on literature, anything you want to find, describing method, okay, reporting result, okay, discussing finding, okay, commenting on finding, writing conclusion, etc. Okay, so hopefully this website will help you lah on how you can write, how to start to write your sentence. Okay. Okay, so that's all for today. If any question, you can ask. Ada soalan? Any question?
Yes, doctor, I have a question.
Yeah.
Previously you just mentioned about number of pages for the introduction, chapter 1.
Yeah.
How about the literature review and also the research methodology? Is there
Okay,
like any
for
recommended number of pages?
research methodology and literature review is unlimited.
Oh, okay.
Okay, as long as you cover for example, like literature review, as long as you cover every aspect of your research, if 10 pages,
okay.
10 pages lah. Alright, it depends. But logically, it will be more than 20 pages, 30 pages lah.
Okay, for the literature review, must be like something about my objectives or approach, or it could be like something in general, even though I'm not going to use that in the data collection.
Yeah, it's more on your objective.
I see. Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Alright, I am going to show you some of my example lah. Okay, but don't be too afraid lah, because this is PhD. Okay, of course it's different lah. Okay, chapter 1. See my chapter 1, page 2 until 12, roughly 10 pages. This PhD. Okay, so if you write more than 10 pages, is quite, I think, ridiculous lah for chapter 1. Okay, this is research background. Agak banyak lah sebenarnya. This is problem statement.
Macam susah ya, doktor.
Of course lah, this is PhD. This is aim, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. One direct sentence. Okay, then objective. Objective, of course lah. PhD is more than 3 lah normally. But for your level, my advice, try to limit your objective to 3. Okay, maximum 3 lah for your objective, for your level lah.
Satu boleh tak?
Satu sikit sangat lah.
Eh.
Minimum 2 to 3 lah. Normally 2 to 3 lah for your level. Okay, this one I said just now, flow of research process. Okay, you can include your research method, for example ni, research methodology in chapter 1. Then you masukkan flow. This is your aim, objective, research questions. This is the method. Okay, how you're going to achieve your objective. What method you're going to use. Okay, and then this is your outcome. Your predicted punya outcome lah, I can say. Okay, so that's example lah. Okay, roughly about 10 pages only for your research method. Okay, sorry, for your chapter 1. Okay, yang lain tak payah tengok lah, yang takut lah.
Doktor,
Yeah.
doktor, nak tanya, kalau for example, untuk research problem, if we explain something, we have to explain the problem in something in the language yang people easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
But if there are like certain terminologies that are needed to be introduced or to explain the terminologies, where would it be
Chapter 2.
put?
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2 lah, maksudnya literature review lah.
Yeah.
So we can use
in chapter 1 in research background, if you want to if you have some terminology that very difficult to explain, perhaps in your chapter 1 you can include in your research background you can include a brief definition of that terminology. Then in chapter 2 you can explain it more detailed.
So
Okay.
for example, okay. It means that we can sometimes use the terminologies first in the introduction, and then
Yes.
later we explain, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, ada soalan lain? Any question? Any more question? Senyap ni semua ni, takut dah ke? Doing research, to be honest, is quite difficult lah sebenarnya. It's very challenging task lah when you do research actually. But as for me, for your level, I didn't expect much lah. If you under me lah, when you under my supervision, because master by coursework ni, I know it's not you're not doing full time research like master by research student or PhD. So I know your limit lah. Okay, but ada supervisor, I don't know lah. Nasib dulu lah kalau dapat supervisor yang demanding and so on. But for me, I know your limit. What should be enough at your level lah. Any more questions?
I think just now I saw in the research you shared about the structure of the research.
Yeah.
Should we include that in the introduction and the
Yeah.
chapter 1?
But for this semester, you don't have to include that because you didn't
Okay.
you still
Because
didn't
I saw
find.
some. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, because for this semester, you just finish until chapter 3, right? You can include, but still it's not being finalized yet because you will have your chapter 4, your chapter 6, chapter 5 later on. So you need to update.
So that will be included in the final.
Yeah,
submission.
you give a brief summary on each chapter. That's what we call it as a structure of your dissertation. Okay, chapter 1, what is the summary of chapter 1? Chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, or chapter 6, and so on.
Okay, I see. I saw something actually in some research, previous researches.
Okay.
They put the second chapter as a literature review, The
Yeah.
third chapter, they put it like specifically on the area they want to focus. Like they separate it or something. For example,
Again,
yeah.
I understood your idea. Okay, because it's again it's depend on because most of your supervisors come from variety of background. Okay, maybe some of them graduated from UiTM, some of them graduated from overseas, UK. Like myself, I graduated from Australia. So each area or each countries, they have different approach in writing the especially on chapter 2. Okay, because as I believe in UK, your LR, you have to write your LR. For example, like you have 4 objectives. Okay, so each objective cover one chapter of LR. Okay, chapter 2 cover LR for objective 1. Chapter 3 cover LR for objective 3. Chapter 4 cover LR for objective 3, and so on. Okay, so it depends. And in certain countries, for example, like I believe in UiTM as well. Chapter 2, the literature review cover every aspect of your LR lah.
Okay. Okay, so we can just include that in chapter 2 only.
Yeah, but again, depends on your supervisor.
Okay.
Okay.
I assume that everyone is in your item, so I just follow your item.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right.
Okay. Okay, like myself, when I did my PhD, I don't have what we call it as I have Viva, but my Viva is conducted internally. Okay, at the school level only. Okay, so once I pass the Viva, then I can submit for external examiner. Okay, so there are 2 external examiners need to be appointed lah. Okay, so in my case, especially in Australia, what you have to be strong is in your writing. Okay, because you don't have opportunity to defend later on. Okay, like your ATM, we have Viva. You're going to submit your thesis to examiner, internal and external. Then after that, they will call you for Viva. Okay, so you have opportunity to defend your research. But like my case in Australia, it will be solely depend on your writing. Okay, so it's very critical lah. Luckily, I got a good proofreader lah when I write my dissertation.
Okay, so the assessment by the end of this semester will be done by our supervisors, right?
Yeah.
How about the next semester?
The next semester, I'm not sure because it keeps changing from time to time. So because previously we have a Viva, and then after that they go for poster presentation, and then they go back to Viva, and I'm not sure how they are going to conduct for next semester. I need to check with Dr. Julaina and Dr. Rumaizah lah.
Okay. But as long as following supervisors should be okay, right?
Yeah. You have to follow your supervisors lah.
Okay. All right, that's good. Actually, some good tips you just give today, and I believe it will be helping us.
Yeah. I hope it could be helpful when you write your result lah.
Sure, doctor.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions? Wait, sejam setengah enggak? If not, I think I can end up the session for tonight. So next week, I'm going to share one of the method that I used when I did my PhD. Okay, because I think I need to expose to you with this method. Perhaps you can consider this method when you want to do your research lah. Previously, we only aware about questionnaire, interview. Okay, and there is one method that could combine both questionnaire and also interview in one method, which known as Delphi method. Some people call it as a Delphi, some people call it as a Delphi method. Okay, DLPHI method. Okay, so next week I will share with you lah how you can conduct Delphi method. Perhaps maybe you could use for your research later on. Okay, so so that's all for tonight. Okay, thank you for your time and commitment. See you next week, same times lah. Okay, once the notes ready, I will let class rep Sri know lah about the notes. Okay, and don't forget to tick your attendance in your future. Alright, so that's all. Thank you. Assalamualaikum. Stay safe.
Waalaikumsalam, Doktor. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay.
Thank you, Doktor.
Thank you, Sasha.